"We're cutting your kids' Christmas presents, money's tight," Dad texted. But brother's kids got iPads, watches, designer sneakers. I flew my kids to Aspen. Shared pictures. Niece asked, "Why didn't you bring US?" I answered, "Money's tight." Mom called, "How could you?" I responded. Can you imagine the sheer gut punch of a text message, just weeks before Christmas, telling you your kids' gifts are cancelled due to budget issues, only to discover that some family members are getting showered with thousands in luxury presents? My heart still races just thinking about it. It started innocently enough. I was untangling Christmas lights with my 8-year-old twin daughters, Emma and Grace, their little hands fluttering around the mess of wires and bulbs. The air was filled with their excited chatter about Grandpa and Grandma's promised Christmas visit when my phone buzzed. A text from my dad. I glanced at it, expecting some festive update. Instead, 2 lines of text made my blood run cold. "We're canceling your kids' Christmas gifts. Budget issues." I stared at the screen in complete disbelief. My wife, Sarah, looked up from hanging an ornament. "What's wrong, honey?" she asked, her voice soft. The girls were bouncing around, oblivious, dreaming of Christmas morning. My mind, though, was racing. Budget issues? My dad? This was the man who, just last month, had gotten a shiny new BMW sitting in his driveway, thanks to his promotion to regional sales director. None of it made any sense. Then, my phone buzzed again. A group family photo from my brother, Derek. His kids, Tyler and Madison, unwrapping what looked like a mountain of early Christmas presents. Expensive ones. It was a kick to the gut. 20 minutes later, I was driving through the familiar suburban streets, heading straight for my parents' house. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles had turned white, stark against the festive glow of Christmas decorations twinkling from every house I passed. But all I could see was that devastating text and those photos of Derek's kids with their brand new, expensive toys. I pulled into their circular driveway, and there it was, Derek's silver Toyota Camry parked right next to Dad's gleaming BMW. Through the large bay window, warm lights spilled out, and I could see the silhouettes of people moving around inside. Laughter. I took a deep breath, trying to steel myself for what was about to be a very uncomfortable conversation. The front door opened before I could even knock. My mom appeared, looking flustered, her silver hair slightly disheveled, clearly a busy afternoon of cooking and entertaining. "Oh, Corey, honey," she said, her voice carrying that nervous edge I remembered from my childhood, the one she used whenever she was trying to smooth over a family conflict. "I wasn't expecting you tonight." "We need to talk, Mom," I said, stepping into the foyer. The scent of roasted turkey and cinnamon filled the air, thick and rich. "About Dad's text." Her face immediately fell, and she glanced nervously toward the living room, where I could hear the sounds of children laughing and video games beeping. "Your father is just trying to be practical about the holidays this year," she began. But I was already walking past her. In the living room, there was Derek, sprawled on the leather sectional, a bottle of expensive craft beer in his hand, watching Tyler and Madison play with what looked like brand new gaming equipment. The coffee table was littered with empty takeout containers from Morton's Steakhouse, easily a $100 dinner. "Hey, little brother," Derek said without even looking up from his phone. He was scrolling through real estate listings, of all things. "Didn't know you were coming by." Tyler, Derek's 10-year-old, glanced up from his new gaming setup. "Uncle Corey. Look what Grandpa got me for Christmas." He held up a controller that I recognized as part of a PlayStation 5 bundle, at least $500. Then 8-year-old Madison bounded over, her wrist adorned with what looked like a genuine Apple Watch. "And look at my new watch. It can track my steps and send messages and everything." I looked around the room, taking it all in. Shopping bags from high-end stores were scattered everywhere. The distinctive Nike swoosh on several shoeboxes stacked near the Christmas tree. The tree itself was loaded, absolutely loaded, with presents, far more than I remembered from previous years. Dad emerged from the kitchen, carrying a bottle of expensive Napa Valley Cabernet. He usually saved that for special occasions. When he saw me, his expression shifted to something between guilt and defensiveness. Corey, son, he began, I suppose Linda told you about our conversation regarding Christmas gifts this year. You mean your text about budget issues? I said, pulling out my phone and reading the message aloud. Because I'm looking around here, and I'm seeing a lot of expensive gifts that don't exactly scream financial hardship. Derek finally looked up from his phone, his jaw tightening slightly. Maybe you don't understand what it's like trying to manage Christmas as a single parent going through a divorce, Corey. The kids need some stability right now. Stability? I gestured toward the gaming equipment. This looks like about $3,000 worth of electronics, Derek. Mom wrung her hands nervously. Derek's situation is complicated, honey. He lost his job 6 months ago, and with the divorce proceedings, he's having to manage the kids on Christmas Day this year instead of Amanda. We wanted to make sure Tyler and Madison had a special Christmas, despite everything their father has been going through. Something cold settled in my stomach. So, let me understand this correctly, I said slowly, letting each word hang in the air. Derek gets early Christmas gifts worth thousands of dollars because he's struggling financially, but my kids get nothing because of budget issues? Dad set down his wine glass and crossed his arms. Your situation is different, son. You have a stable job, a stable marriage. You can afford to provide for your daughters. Derek really needs our help right now. So, financial help means luxury electronics and designer shoes? I pointed to the Nike boxes. Those aren't exactly necessities, Dad. Derek stood up, his face flushing red. You have no idea what I'm dealing with right now. Amanda's lawyers are bleeding me dry. I'm trying to start my own business, and I need to make sure my kids don't suffer because of adult problems they didn't create. What kind of business? I asked, my voice flat. Consulting, Derek said quickly. Marketing consulting. It's just taking time to build up the client base. Tyler held up a pair of brand new Air Jordan sneakers. Dad says these cost $200. Grandpa got them special ordered. I looked at Dad. He was now actively avoiding eye contact. $200 for shoes for a 10-year-old. But you can't manage Christmas gifts for Emma and Grace. It's not about what we can manage, Dad said defensively. It's about prioritizing where our help is needed most. Derek's children are dealing with family instability right now. And what exactly do you think my children are dealing with? I shot back, when their grandparents suddenly cancel Christmas with a 2-line text message. Mom stepped between us, her voice pleading. Boys, please. Don't fight. It's almost Christmas. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah, girls are asking when you'll be home. Emma wants to know if Grandma and Grandpa are still coming for Christmas morning. I stared at the message, thinking about my daughters at home, probably still decorating the tree, chattering excitedly about Christmas morning, completely unaware that their grandparents had just written them off in favor of their cousins. I need some air, I said, heading toward the back patio door. But as I passed the kitchen, I heard Dad and Derek talking in low voices near the breakfast nook. I told you this would be awkward, Dad was saying. But Corey's got that stable engineering salary. He can afford his own kids' Christmas. You really need the help right now. I appreciate it, Dad, Derek replied. The kids deserve this after everything they've been through. Corey will understand eventually. He's always been the responsible one. I stood there in the kitchen doorway, frozen. I listened to them discuss my family's Christmas like we were a line item in their budget that could simply be crossed out. The casual way they dismissed my daughter's feelings. The assumption that I should just accept being treated as less important because I was financially stable. It all hit me like a punch to the gut. I walked back into the living room, where Tyler and Madison were now showing off designer clothing that still had tags attached. Madison was modeling a coat that I recognized from a high-end department store, the kind that cost more than most people spent on their entire winter wardrobe. "I need to get home to my family," I announced. Derek looked up from his beer. "Tell Emma and Grace we said hi. Maybe they can come over and play with Tyler and Madison's new stuff sometime." The casual cruelty of that suggestion left me speechless. I kissed Mom on the cheek and nodded to Dad, who was looking uncomfortable but showed no signs of reconsidering his decision. As I drove home through the twinkling Christmas lights of our neighborhood, I kept replaying that overheard conversation, the dismissive way they had talked about my family, the assumption that we should just accept being treated as second-class relatives because we were doing well financially. When I walked through our front door, Emma and Grace ran to greet me, their faces bright with excitement. "Daddy, did you talk to Grandpa about Christmas morning?" Emma asked. "Are they still coming to watch us open presents?" I knelt down and hugged both my daughters, breathing in the scent of their strawberry shampoo and feeling my heart break a little bit more. "We'll talk about Christmas morning tomorrow, sweethearts," I said, my voice thick. "Right now, let's just focus on making our tree beautiful." Sarah caught my eye over the girls' heads, and I could see the questions in her expression. I just shook my head slightly. This wasn't a conversation for little ears. Later that night, after we had tucked the twins into bed and they drifted off to sleep, still talking excitedly about Santa and Christmas morning, I told Sarah everything. She listened in stunned silence as I described the scene at my parents' house. The expensive gifts, the casual dismissal of our family's feelings. "I can't believe they would do that," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Those girls have been looking forward to Christmas with their grandparents for months." "The worst part is how they talked about us when they thought I couldn't hear," I said, a bitter taste in my mouth. "Like we're just the successful family that doesn't need love or consideration because we can take care of ourselves." Sarah reached over and took my hand. "What are we going to do about Christmas morning?" "The girls are expecting their grandparents to be here." I stared up at the ceiling, listening to the winter wind rattling our bedroom windows, and realized that everything I thought I knew about my family had just fundamentally changed. The next morning, I woke up with a sick feeling in my stomach and a fierce determination to understand exactly what was really going on with Derek's supposed financial crisis. Sarah was already in the kitchen, making coffee, and she could see from my expression that I hadn't slept well. "I keep thinking about last night," I said, accepting the steaming mug she handed me. "Something doesn't add up about Derek's story." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked, settling into the breakfast nook beside me. "The expensive takeout. The designer clothes, still with tags on them. The way he was casually browsing real estate listings on his phone. None of that screams desperate financial situation to me." Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "And didn't you say he quit his job, rather than getting laid off?" "That's what I thought," I said, frowning. "But Mom specifically said he lost his job. I think I need to make some phone calls." After Sarah left for work and the girls went to school, I started my detective work. My first call was to Jake Morrison, a mutual friend who worked in Derek's former marketing department. "Hey, Jake, it's Corey. I hope you don't mind me calling, but I wanted to ask you about something regarding Derek." "Sure, man. What's up?" "My family mentioned he lost his job a few months ago, and I wanted to understand what happened. Was it layoffs or performance issues?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Lost his job?" "Corey, Derek wasn't fired. He quit. Gave his 2 weeks' notice back in June and said he was starting his own consulting business." I felt my grip tighten on the phone. "Are you absolutely certain about that?" "Completely certain. I was actually in the meeting when he announced it. He said he had some big clients lined up and was ready to be his own boss. The whole department was kind of envious, actually. He made it sound like he was going to be making bank." After I hung up, I sat staring at my laptop screen for several minutes, processing this information. Then I opened Derek's LinkedIn profile, which I hadn't looked at in months. What I found there made my blood boil. Derek's profile showed him as founder and principal consultant at his own marketing firm. His recent posts included photos from business lunches at expensive restaurants, updates about exciting new client partnerships, and a professional headshot taken in what looked like a high-end photography studio. One post from just 2 weeks ago showed him at a networking event at a downtown hotel with the caption, "Building relationships and expanding horizons, grateful for the opportunities that come with entrepreneurship." Another post from last month featured a photo of Derek at an expensive steakhouse with several other men in business suits, captioned, "Closing deals and building partnerships, nothing beats a successful quarter." I scrolled through months of posts, each one painting the picture of a successful entrepreneur, not a struggling single father facing financial hardship. There were photos from weekend trips, expensive dinners, and what appeared to be a new wardrobe of professional clothing. Then I decided to check his social media accounts. Derek's Instagram told an even more revealing story. Photos from a weekend trip to Las Vegas just 3 weeks ago, including pictures at high-end casinos and expensive buffets. A photo from 2 months ago showing him at a professional football game in what appeared to be premium seats. Multiple posts featuring expensive meals at trendy restaurants around the city. But the most damning evidence came when I found his Facebook page, which he apparently thought was more private. Photos from his recent birthday party at an upscale cocktail lounge, complete with bottle service and what looked like a several $100 bar tab. And then I found the photo that made everything click into place. It was a picture Derek had posted just 4 days ago, showing him standing next to a bright red Corvette convertible with the caption, "Sometimes you need to treat yourself. Life's too short for boring cars." I screenshot the image and sat back in my chair, feeling a mixture of anger and vindication. This was the same car Derek had supposedly been forced to sell due to financial hardship, according to the story Mom had told me. My phone rang, interrupting my investigation. It was Sarah, calling during her lunch break. "Any luck with your research?" she asked. "You could say that," I replied, my voice tight. Derek hasn't been fired from anything. He quit his job voluntarily to start his own business, which appears to be doing quite well, based on his social media presence. And he definitely hasn't sold his Corvette like he claimed. Are you serious? Dead serious. He's been posting photos of expensive trips, business dinners, and luxury purchases for months. Either he's the worst businessman in history for spending money he doesn't have, or he's been lying to Mom and Dad about his financial situation. Sarah was quiet for a moment. So he's manipulating them. That's exactly what he's doing. And it's working perfectly. He gets to play the victim while our kids get nothing for Christmas. What are you going to do with this information? I looked at the screenshots I had taken, the evidence of Derek's deception laid out clearly on my computer screen. I'm not sure yet. But I'm not going to let him destroy my daughter's Christmas while he plays games with our parents' emotions. That afternoon, when Emma and Grace came home from school, they were full of questions about Christmas morning. Is Grandma Linda coming to make her special pancakes? Grace asked, referring to the Christmas morning tradition my mother had maintained for years. Are Grandpa Frank and Grandma going to be here when we open presents? Emma added. Tyler texted me that they gave him a new gaming system already. I exchanged glances with Sarah, who had gotten home early from work. Girls, come sit with Daddy and Mommy for a minute, I said, settling onto the living room couch. They climbed up beside us, their faces expectant but beginning to show traces of worry. Grandpa and Grandma aren't going to be able to come for Christmas morning this year, I said gently. They're spending Christmas with Uncle Derek and your cousins. Emma's face fell immediately. But they always come here for Christmas morning. It's our tradition. Why can't they come to both? Grace asked, her voice small. They could come here first and then go to Uncle Derek's. Sarah reached over and smoothed Grace's hair. Sometimes grown-ups have to make difficult decisions about holidays, sweetie. Uncle Derek's kids are going through some changes with their parents' divorce, so Grandpa and Grandma want to be there for them. But what about us? Emma asked, her voice small and hurt. Don't they want to be here for us, too? The question hit me like a physical blow. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that their grandparents had essentially ranked them as less important than their cousins? Of course, they love you just as much, I said, though the words felt hollow even as I spoke them. Sometimes families have to make hard choices. After dinner, while the girls were upstairs doing homework, my phone rang. It was Mom. Corey, honey, I've been thinking about last night, and I want you to know that this decision wasn't easy for us. Mom, can I ask you something directly? Of course. Has Derek shown you any documentation of his job loss? Termination papers, unemployment filing, anything official? There was a pause. Well, no, but he explained the situation when he moved back in with us temporarily. He's living with you just until he gets back on his feet. The divorce has been so hard on him financially. I took a deep breath. Mom, I need you to look at something. Can you get on your computer? I suppose so. I'm going to send you Derek's LinkedIn profile and some of his social media posts. I think you need to see what he's been posting about his business success. Corey, I don't think I should be spying on your brother. It's not spying if it's publicly posted. Mom, he's been lying to you about his financial situation. After I sent her the links and screenshots, the phone was quiet for several long minutes. Oh my, she said finally, her voice very small. Mom, that Corvette in the photo, that's the car he told you he had to sell, right? Yes. He said the divorce settlement required him to liquidate assets. This photo was posted 4 days ago. He still owns the car. The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long that I wondered if the call had dropped. Mom, are you still there? I need to talk to your father, she said finally, her voice shaky. Corey, I had no idea. I know you didn't. But Mom, this means that Derek has been manipulating you and Dad, while my kids suffer the consequences. Emma and Grace have been looking forward to Christmas morning with you for months. I feel sick, she said quietly. I need to go process this information. After she hung up, I found Sarah in the kitchen, loading the dishwasher. How did that go? She asked. I think Mom's starting to understand what's really been happening. But I'm not holding my breath for Dad to change his mind. He's always had a soft spot for Derek's drama. Sarah dried her hands and turned to face me. What if they don't fix this? What if Emma and Grace end up having a Christmas morning without their grandparents because Derek manipulated the situation? I looked toward the staircase, where I could hear the girls getting ready for bed, their voices still carrying that excited anticipation that comes with being 8 years old 3 weeks before Christmas. Then we'll make sure they have the best Christmas possible anyway, I said. And Derek will learn that actions have consequences. But even as I said it, I was already formulating a plan that would teach my entire family exactly what budget issues really felt like. Christmas morning arrived, gray and cold, with a light dusting of snow that would have been magical under different circumstances. I woke up early, as I always did on Christmas, but instead of excitement, I felt a heavy dread settling in my chest. Sarah and I had managed to scrape together enough money for some modest gifts for Emma and Grace, art supplies, a few books, some small toys that we hoped would bring smiles to their faces despite the absence of their grandparents. We had dipped into our emergency savings, the fund we had been building for unexpected expenses, just to make sure the girls had something to open. Emma and Grace came bounding down the stairs at 7 a.m., their faces bright with the kind of pure joy that only children can experience on Christmas. They raced to the tree, where our small collection of wrapped packages waited for them. Where are Grandma and Grandpa's presents? Grace asked, looking around the tree with confusion. Remember, sweetie, they're spending Christmas with Tyler and Madison this year, Sarah said gently, settling onto the couch with her coffee. Emma's face fell slightly, but she rallied quickly. Well, can we call them after we open presents so they can see what Santa brought us? Of course, we can, I said, though I dreaded the conversation that would inevitably follow. The girls opened their gifts with enthusiasm, exclaiming over their new art supplies and books. Emma immediately started sketching in her new drawing pad, and Grace began arranging her new crayons by color. But I could see the questions in their eyes, the confusion about why Christmas felt different this year. Around 9:30, Sarah suggested we video call my parents so the girls could show them their gifts. I reluctantly pulled up the video chat app on my phone, dreading what we were about to see. When the call connected, we found ourselves looking into my parents' living room, where Derek's family was gathered around their Christmas tree. The sheer volume of gifts was staggering. The tree was surrounded by open boxes, wrapping paper, and what looked like thousands of dollars worth of electronics and toys. "Grandma Linda! Grandpa Frank!" Emma called out excitedly. "Look what I got for Christmas!" She held up her art supplies, and I watched my parents' faces try to muster enthusiasm that clearly didn't match what they were seeing around their own living room. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," Mom said, but her voice sounded strained. In the background, Tyler was setting up what appeared to be a complete gaming system with multiple controllers and a massive television screen I hadn't noticed in their living room before. "Uncle Corey and Sarah!" Tyler called out, apparently unaware of the tension. "Look what Grandpa got me." He gestured toward the gaming setup. "It's the new PlayStation with all the best games. It cost $3,000. Grace's eyes widened as she looked at the screen. $3,000, she whispered to me. Madison bounded into view, wearing what appeared to be a complete outfit of designer clothes, including shoes that I recognized as costing several hundred each. "And look at my Christmas clothes," Madison announced, twirling to show off her outfit. "Grandma took me shopping at the fancy mall. She said I could pick out whatever I wanted." I watched my daughters' faces as they took in the extravagant display of gifts their cousins had received. The simple joy they had felt about their own presents was slowly being replaced by confusion and hurt. "Grandpa," Emma said quietly, her voice barely audible. "Did Santa bring Tyler and Madison extra presents because they're staying at your house?" Dad cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Well, sweetie, Santa knows that Tyler and Madison are going through some changes this year, so he wanted to make sure their Christmas was special. But we would have been good, too," Grace said, her voice very small. "We helped Mommy and Daddy decorate the tree. And we've been extra good at school." I felt something break inside my chest, watching my 8-year-old daughter try to understand why she was less deserving of her grandparents' attention and generosity. Derek appeared in the video frame, carrying a glass of what appeared to be expensive champagne. "Hey, little brother, how's your Christmas morning going?" "It's going fine," I said tightly. "Tyler, show them your other presents," Derek encouraged. For the next 10 minutes, we were subjected to a parade of expensive gifts, video games, designer clothing, high-end electronics, jewelry, and toys that individually cost more than our entire Christmas budget. Derek made sure to mention the price of several items, clearly reveling in the display of wealth. "And this is just the beginning," Derek announced. "Mom and Dad are taking the kids shopping after Christmas for their winter wardrobes. Apparently, the kids need new ski equipment for our trip to Colorado next month." I felt Sarah's hand squeeze my arm tightly. "You're going skiing?" Emma asked, her voice full of longing. "Grandpa's treating us to a week at Vail," Tyler announced proudly. "It's going to be amazing." After we ended the call, Emma and Grace sat quietly on the living room floor, surrounded by their modest gifts, but clearly processing what they had just witnessed. "Daddy," Grace said finally. "Why do Tyler and Madison get so many presents and a ski trip?" "Yeah," Emma added. "And why don't Grandma and Grandpa love us enough to come see us on Christmas morning?" Sarah got up abruptly and walked into the kitchen, and I could hear her crying quietly. I knelt down between my daughters, trying to find words that would comfort them without lying about the situation. "Sometimes adults make decisions that don't seem fair," I said carefully. "But that doesn't mean you're loved any less, and it doesn't mean you did anything wrong." "But it feels like we did something wrong," Emma said, her eyes filling with tears. I pulled both girls into a hug, feeling my anger toward Derek and my parents reaching a boiling point. But before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Dad. Corey, Linda and I have been talking, and we think it would be a good idea if your family could contribute to Tyler and Madison's college funds this year instead of exchanging gifts. Since you're doing so well financially, it would really help Derek plan for the kids' futures. We could set up $500 per child as a starting point. I stared at the message in absolute disbelief. After watching Derek's children receive thousands of dollars in Christmas gifts, after my own daughters had been excluded from their grandparents' celebration, Dad was asking me to contribute to my nephew's and niece's college funds. Sarah appeared in the doorway, having composed herself. "What is it?" she asked, seeing my expression. I showed her the text, and I watched her face transform from confusion to fury. "Are they serious?" she whispered. "Apparently so." Emma looked up at me with those trusting 8-year-old eyes. "Daddy, are you sad about Christmas?" I looked at my daughter, then at Grace, then at Sarah, and realized that something fundamental had shifted in me. Derek's manipulation had cost my children their relationship with their grandparents. His lies had resulted in my daughters spending Christmas morning feeling like they weren't good enough, weren't loved enough, weren't worthy of the same treatment as their cousins. I thought about the emergency savings we had just depleted to buy their modest Christmas gifts. I thought about Dad's casual assumption that we should contribute to Derek's children's future while Derek spent frivolously on luxury items and manipulated our parents with lies about his financial situation. And I realized that it was time to stop being the responsible, understanding son who accepted whatever treatment the family decided to give us. "No, sweetheart," I said to Emma. "Daddy's not sad. Daddy's just figuring some things out." I walked into the kitchen and started researching last-minute vacation packages on my phone. If Derek could manipulate the situation to get luxury treatment for his family, then it was time for my family to experience some luxury of our own. And it was time to teach everyone involved exactly what budget issues really meant. The Monday after Christmas, while Emma and Grace were still on winter break from school, I made a decision that would change everything. I was sitting in my home office, staring at my laptop screen when I came across a last-minute vacation package deal that seemed almost too good to be true. ASPEN Winter Family Package, the advertisement read. 5 days, 4 nights at the luxurious Mountain View Resort. Includes ski lessons, equipment rental, and gourmet dining. Last-minute availability for the week between Christmas and New Year's. I clicked through the details, calculating the cost in my head. It would require using our credit card, and it would definitely stretch our budget. But after watching my daughters' faces on Christmas morning, I realized this wasn't really about money anymore. This was about dignity, self-respect, and teaching Emma and Grace that they deserve to be treated with the same love and consideration as anyone else in the family. Sarah walked into the office, carrying a cup of coffee. I turned the laptop screen toward her. "Are you seriously considering this?" she asked, reading over the vacation details. "Dead serious. Derek gets to manipulate Mom and Dad into funding his family's luxury lifestyle while our kids get excluded from Christmas. I think it's time we showed everyone that we can create our own magical family experiences." Sarah sat down in the chair across from my desk, her expression thoughtful but concerned. "Corey, this is going to cost us several $1,000s. Money we don't exactly have sitting around. The money we don't have sitting around because we just spent our emergency fund on Christmas gifts after Dad canceled the girls' presents for budget reasons," I said, a bitter edge to my voice. Meanwhile, Derek's kids got thousands in gifts, plus a ski trip to Vail. But what's the point? This feels like we're trying to compete with them. I leaned back in my chair, considering her question. "It's not about competition, Sarah. It's about showing Emma and Grace that they matter, that they deserve wonderful experiences and family adventures. And honestly, it's about showing my family that their assumptions about us are completely wrong." "What do you mean?" "Dad assumes we'll just accept whatever treatment they decide to give us because we're financially stable. He literally asked me to contribute to Derek's kids' college funds after excluding our daughters from Christmas. The whole family operates under this assumption that responsible, successful people don't need love, consideration, or special treatment. Sarah was quiet for several minutes, sipping her coffee and looking at the vacation package on the screen. And you think taking the girls to Aspen will change that? I think taking the girls to Aspen will show them that their parents prioritize their happiness and well-being above everything else. And if the rest of the family sees it and realizes what they've been missing out on by excluding us, well, that's just a bonus. What about the cost? We'll be paying this off for months. I thought about Derek's Instagram posts. His expensive business dinners. His Corvette. His weekend trips to Vegas, all funded, apparently, by manipulating our parents while playing the victim. Derek's been spending money he claims not to have for months while getting handouts from mom and dad. Meanwhile, we've been responsible, budget-conscious, and careful with our finances. And what has that gotten us? Our kids excluded from family celebrations because we're supposedly too successful to need support. Sarah started laughing, but it wasn't a happy sound. It is pretty ridiculous when you put it that way. I'm tired of being punished for being responsible, Sarah. I'm tired of watching our daughters suffer because their parents are stable and reliable. Derek gets rewarded for being dramatic and manipulative, and we get taken for granted because we don't create chaos. I pulled up Derek's recent social media posts on my phone and showed them to Sarah. Look at this. 3 weeks ago, he was posting from Vegas. 2 weeks ago, he was at some expensive steakhouse, closing deals. Last week, he posted a picture with his Corvette, talking about treating yourself. But somehow he's too financially strapped to afford his kids' Christmas gifts. Sarah scrolled through the posts, her expression growing more incredulous with each image. These restaurant bills alone probably cost more than our Christmas budget. Exactly. So, while he's manipulating mom and dad with fake financial hardship, we're over here actually living within our means and getting treated like we don't matter because we're not dramatic enough. I looked toward the living room, where I could hear Emma and Grace playing with their Christmas gifts, their voices carrying that forced cheerfulness that children use when they're trying to be happy about something that's actually disappointed them. Those girls have been looking forward to Christmas with their grandparents since October. They've been talking about Grandma Linda's special pancakes and showing Grandpa Frank their art projects and playing games with their cousins. And it all got taken away because Derek decided to play victim, and Mom and Dad decided that his kids' happiness was more important than our kids' happiness. Sarah set down her coffee cup and looked at me seriously. If we do this, if we book this vacation, we're committing to something bigger than just a family trip. What do you mean? I mean, we're committing to not being the family members who just accept whatever treatment we're given. We're committing to prioritizing our own family's happiness, even if it makes other people uncomfortable. I thought about that for a moment. She was right. This vacation would be a statement, a line in the sand that said we wouldn't be taken for granted anymore. I think I'm ready to make that commitment, I said. Are you? Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled. You know what? Yes, I am. Those girls deserve to know that their parents will fight for their happiness. And frankly, after watching Derek manipulate this entire situation, I'm ready to stop being the understanding sister-in-law who just accepts whatever the family decides. I started booking the vacation package immediately. 5 days at a luxury resort in Aspen, with ski lessons for the girls, spa treatments for Sarah, and enough high-end experiences to create the kind of magical family memories that would last a lifetime. As I entered our credit card information, my phone buzzed with a text from Derek. It was a group message sent to me, Mom, and Dad, featuring photos from their ski trip planning. Excited for our Vail adventure next month. The kids are going to love the slopes. Thanks again, Mom and Dad, for making this possible for my family during such a difficult time. I stared at the message for a moment, then screenshotted it and added it to the collection of evidence I had been building about Derek's manipulation. Girls! I called toward the living room. Can you come here for a minute? Daddy and Mommy have something exciting to tell you. Emma and Grace came running into the office, their faces curious and hopeful. "How would you like to go on a surprise vacation this week?" I asked. "A vacation where?" Emma asked, her eyes lighting up for the first time since Christmas morning. "Aspen, Colorado. We're going to go skiing and stay in a beautiful mountain resort and have spa days and eat at fancy restaurants." Grace's mouth fell open. "Really? We're really going on a vacation?" "Really?" Really, Sarah confirmed. "We leave tomorrow morning." The girls erupted in squeals of excitement, dancing around the office and asking a million questions about skiing and mountains and room service. I watched their faces transform from the subdued disappointment they had carried since Christmas to pure joy, and I knew I was making the right decision. Later that evening, after we had spent the day shopping for ski equipment and warm clothes, and after the girls had gone to bed, still talking excitedly about their upcoming adventure, I sat down to plan the social media strategy that would accompany our vacation. If Derek could use social media to manipulate the family narrative, then I could use it to tell our story, too. But unlike Derek's lies and exaggerations, my posts would be documenting real experiences, real joy, and real family bonding. I created a list of the photos I wanted to make sure to capture: the girls learning to ski, our family test dining at elegant restaurants, the luxury suite we would be staying in, the spa treatments and activities we had planned. And I made sure to research the best hashtags and captions that would ensure maximum visibility among our extended family members. Because it was time for everyone to see that Emma and Grace's family could create magical experiences, too. And it was time for Tyler and Madison to learn what it felt like to be excluded from something wonderful. But as I was finalizing our itinerary, my phone rang. It was Mom, and her voice sounded shaky. "Corey, honey, I need to tell you something. Your father and I have been talking about Christmas and about some of the things you showed me regarding Derek's social media posts." "Okay," I said cautiously. "I think we may have made a mistake. A big mistake. And I'm not sure how to fix it." I felt a surge of vindication, followed immediately by anger. "What kind of mistake, Mom?" "I don't think Derek has been entirely honest with us about his financial situation. And I'm starting to realize that our decision about Christmas gifts may have hurt Emma and Grace in ways we didn't consider." "May have hurt them?" I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "Mom, my 8-year-old daughters spent Christmas morning trying to understand why their grandparents didn't love them enough to come see them. They watched Tyler and Madison open thousands of dollars worth of gifts while they tried to be grateful for the art supplies we bought after depleting our savings." "I know, honey. I know. And I feel terrible about it. And then Dad asked me to contribute to Derek's kids' college funds after excluding my kids from Christmas because of budget issues." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Your father realizes that message was inappropriate," she said finally. "He's been feeling guilty about it since he sent it." "Good," I said. "Because tomorrow morning, I'm taking my family to Aspen for a week-long vacation. And maybe while we're gone, you and Dad can figure out whether Emma and Grace actually matter to you, or if they're just the grandchildren you take for granted because their parents are responsible adults." "Corey, please don't." I hung up the phone and immediately turned it to silent mode. Whatever revelations my parents were having about their treatment of my family, they were about 6 months too late. Derek had been manipulating them successfully, and they had made their choices. Now it was time for my family to make our own choices. And our choice was to stop waiting for other people to value us and start showing Emma and Grace that they were worth every luxury, every adventure, and every magical experience we could possibly provide. The mountain air in Aspen was crisp and clean, and the snow-covered peaks surrounding our resort looked like something from a fairy tale. As our taxi pulled up to the Mountain View Resort, Emma and Grace pressed their faces to the windows, their breath fogging up the glass as they stared in wonder at the elegant lodge-style building with its soaring timber architecture and massive stone fireplaces visible through the floor-to-ceiling windows. "Is this really where we're staying?" Grace whispered, her voice full of awe. "This is it, sweetheart," Sarah said, squeezing both girls' hands as we stepped out of the taxi. The valet immediately appeared to handle our luggage, and a friendly concierge welcomed us into a lobby decorated with twinkling lights and elegant silver and gold ornaments. Our suite was on the 4th floor, with panoramic views of the mountain slopes where skiers carved elegant turns down powdery white runs. The room itself was larger than our entire downstairs at home, with a fireplace, a kitchenette, and a separate bedroom for the girls that featured bunk beds built into the wall like something from a luxury cabin. "This is the most beautiful place I've ever seen," Emma said, spinning around in the center of the living area. I pulled out my phone and took a photo of the girls exploring their room, their faces bright with excitement and wonder. Then I took a picture of the view from our balcony, the mountain peaks dramatic against the blue Colorado sky. I posted both photos to my social media accounts with the caption, "Creating magical memories with my amazing family." Sometimes the best adventures are the ones you plan at the last minute. Within an hour, our ski instructor arrived to meet us in the lobby. Her name was Jessica, a cheerful woman in her 20s who immediately put Emma and Grace at ease with her warm smile and patient demeanor. "Have you girls ever been skiing before?" she asked as we walked toward the equipment rental area. "Never," Grace admitted. "But Daddy says we're going to learn." "Well, you're going to love it. The mountain conditions are perfect today, and we have the most beautiful beginner slopes you've ever seen." The equipment rental process was like nothing I had ever experienced. Instead of the cramped, chaotic rental shops I remembered from my own childhood skiing experiences, this was more like a high-end boutique. Everything was clean, organized, and professional, with staff members who took precise measurements and made sure every piece of equipment fit perfectly. Emma and Grace looked like little professional skiers in their rented gear, complete with helmets decorated with colorful designs and matching ski outfits in bright pink and purple. I took photos of them getting fitted for their equipment, their faces serious with concentration as they learned how to walk in ski boots. Then I captured the moment when they first stepped onto their skis in the lodge's practice area, wobbling slightly but grinning with determination. I posted with the caption, "Watching my daughters discover new adventures. Proud daddy moment." The ski lesson itself was magical. Jessica started them on the bunny hill, a gentle slope where they could practice the basic movements without any fear of going too fast or losing control. I watched from the sidelines as Emma and Grace slowly gained confidence, their initial wobbles giving way to tentative gliding movements. "Look, Daddy!" Emma called out as she made her first successful turn. "I'm really skiing." Grace followed close behind, her face intense with concentration as she copied Jessica's movements. When she successfully completed her first run down the small hill, she threw her arms up in the air in triumph. "I actually did it!" I photographed every moment, from their tentative first steps to their growing confidence to the proud smiles when they successfully completed their lesson. But more importantly, I watched my daughter's self-esteem rebuild before my eyes. After the disappointment of Christmas morning, they were discovering that they were capable of amazing things, that they deserved wonderful experiences, and that their parents would move mountains to make sure they felt valued and loved. That evening, we had dinner at the resort's 5-star restaurant, a stunning space with vaulted ceilings and picture windows overlooking the illuminated ski slopes. Emma and Grace had never experienced fine dining before, and they approached the experience with a mixture of curiosity and excitement. "The menu has words I don't know," Grace whispered to me, studying the elegant descriptions of each dish. "That's okay," I whispered back. "We'll ask the waiter to explain anything you're curious about." Our server, a professional named Marcus, was wonderful with the girls. He patiently explained each dish, made recommendations based on their preferences, and even arranged for the chef to prepare a special version of the pasta dish that would appeal to their 8-year-old palates. I photographed our elegant table setting, the girls in their nice dresses, studying the menu with serious expressions, and the beautiful presentation of each course as it arrived. The food was incredible. But more than that, watching Emma and Grace experience this level of service and attention was priceless. "Daddy," Emma said as we were finishing our dessert. "This is the best dinner I've ever had in my whole life." "Mine, too," Grace agreed. "I feel like a princess." I posted a family photo from dinner with the caption, teaching my daughters that they deserve the very best life has to offer. Family memories that will last forever. By the second day of our vacation, Emma and Grace had graduated to intermediate slopes, their confidence on skis growing exponentially. We hired a professional photographer for the morning to capture our family skiing together, and the results were stunning. Action shots of the girls carving turns down the mountain, family portraits against the backdrop of snow-covered peaks, and candid moments of pure joy and laughter. I posted the professional photos throughout the day, each one showcasing our family's adventure and the girls' growing ski abilities. My daughter's conquering new challenges fills my heart with pride, I captioned one. The response from our extended family was immediate and intense. My aunts and uncles began commenting on the posts, asking where we were and how we could afford such an elaborate vacation. Cousins who hadn't been in touch for months were suddenly liking and sharing our photos. But the comment that mattered most came on day 3 of our trip. I had posted a family photo from our spa day, where Emma and Grace had gotten their first professional manicures and had their hair styled in elegant braids. Sarah and I had enjoyed couples massage treatments while the girls were pampered in the family spa area. The photo showed all 4 of us relaxed and glowing, wearing the plush resort bathrobes and looking completely content. The caption read, "Self-care and family bonding, teaching my girls that they're worth every luxury and every moment of joy we can create together." Tyler commented first, "Wow, Uncle Corey, this looks amazing. Where are you guys?" Madison's comment appeared an hour later, "This looks so fun. Why didn't you invite us?" I stared at that comment for several minutes, feeling a rush of satisfaction, followed by a moment of doubt. These were children, after all, and they hadn't chosen their father's manipulative behavior or their grandparents' favoritism. But then I thought about Emma's face on Christmas morning, asking why Grandma and Grandpa didn't love them enough to come see them. I thought about Grace trying to understand why Tyler and Madison deserved ski trips and expensive gifts while she and Emma got excluded from family celebrations. And I typed my response, budget issues. The comment appeared innocuous enough to anyone who didn't understand the context, but I knew that every member of my family would immediately recognize the exact phrase Dad had used to cancel my daughter's Christmas gifts. Within 20 minutes, my phone started buzzing with notifications. Extended family members were commenting, asking what I meant by budget issues when we were clearly on an expensive vacation. Derek's ex-wife, Amanda, even commented, saying she was glad to see someone in the family prioritizing their children's happiness. But the call that came 2 hours later was the one I had been expecting. "Corey Benjamin." Mom's voice was sharp with anger when I answered the phone. "How could you say that to Madison? She's just a child." "I used the exact words Dad used when he canceled Christmas for Emma and Grace," I said calmly. "I thought it was the family's standard explanation for budget-related exclusions from events. That's completely different, and you know it." "Is it, Mom?" "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks exactly the same. Children asking why they're being excluded from a family experience. Adults responding with budget issues as an explanation. Your father had legitimate reasons for his Christmas decision." "Did he?" "Because Derek's been posting pictures of his Corvette and his business trips and his expensive dinners for months while claiming to be financially struggling? But somehow Emma and Grace got excluded from Christmas because of budget issues." The silence on the other end of the line stretched for several moments. "Your father wants to talk to you," Mom said finally, her voice strained. Dad's voice came on the line, and I could hear the controlled anger in his tone. "Son, your response to Madison was inappropriate and cruel. Was it more inappropriate and cruel than texting me that my daughter's Christmas was cancelled for budget reasons while funding Derek's family's luxury lifestyle? Derek's situation is complicated. Derek's situation is a lie, Dad. He quit his job voluntarily. He's been spending money on luxury items and trips for months. And he's been manipulating you and Mom while playing the victim. Meanwhile, Emma and Grace got excluded from family Christmas because you decided that responsible parents don't deserve consideration. That's not what happened." "That's exactly what happened." Derek gets rewarded for being dramatic and irresponsible, and my kids get punished because their parents are stable and successful. Well, guess what, Dad? Stable and successful parents can create amazing experiences for their children, too. And we don't need anyone's permission or approval to make our daughters feel valued and loved. I hung up the phone and turned it back to silent mode. Then I looked out the window of our luxury suite at the mountain peaks, glowing in the afternoon sunlight, and I realized that for the first time in months, I felt completely at peace with my decisions. Emma and Grace were learning that they deserved wonderful things. Sarah and I were rediscovering our well-being, and the rest of the family was learning that their assumptions about us were completely wrong. But the real satisfaction would come when we got home and they realized that this was just the beginning of how differently we were going to approach family relationships going forward. On our 4th day in Aspen, as we were enjoying breakfast on the resort's outdoor terrace overlooking the pristine mountain slopes, my phone buzzed with the notification I'd been waiting for. Madison had commented on our latest family photo, the one showing Emma and Grace confidently skiing down an intermediate trail with the caption, "My fearless daughters conquering new heights every day." Her comment was innocent and heartbreaking. "Why didn't you invite us? This looks so fun, and I want to learn skiing, too." I took a screenshot of the comment before crafting my response. This was the moment I had been building toward, the opportunity to deliver the perfect lesson and consequences. Using the exact language my father had used to devastate my daughters just 1 week earlier, I typed, "budget issues." The response was simple, elegant, and devastating in its accuracy. Anyone who saw the comment thread would understand immediately that I was using the exact phrase that had been used to exclude my children from Christmas morning with their grandparents. Within minutes, the notifications started rolling in. Extended family members began commenting, asking what I meant. Aunt Patricia wrote, "What budget issues? You're clearly on an expensive vacation." Uncle Robert added, "Wait, didn't Frank say something about budget issues for Christmas, too?" But it was Tyler's confused response that really drove the point home. "Uncle Corey, what are budget issues? Dad says we can't come because of budget issues, but I don't understand what that means." I watched the comment thread develop, family members slowly piecing together the connection between Dad's Christmas cancellation and my Aspen exclusion. The beautiful irony wasn't lost on anyone. The family that had been excluded for supposed budget reasons was now excluding others for the same stated rationale. Derek's ex-wife, Amanda, commented with a laughing emoji, "Interesting how budget issues work differently for different family members." 20 minutes later, my phone started ringing. It was Mom, and I could hear the controlled fury in her voice even before she spoke. "Corey Benjamin. How dare you embarrass this family on social media like that?" "I'm not embarrassing anyone, Mom. I'm simply using the communication style that Dad established as appropriate for explaining family exclusions to children. Madison is crying because she doesn't understand why you won't invite them on your vacation." I felt a momentary pang of guilt, but then I remembered Grace's tears on Christmas morning. Emma's confused questions about why Grandma and Grandpa didn't love them anymore, and the way my daughters had tried to be grateful for their modest gifts while watching their cousins display thousands of dollars worth of luxury presents. "That's unfortunate," I said. "But I'm sure Derek can explain budget issues to his children the same way you and Dad explained them to mine. This is completely different, and you know it." "How is it different, Mom?" Madison asked why she wasn't invited to a family experience, and I used the exact same explanation Dad used when Emma and Grace asked why their Christmas was cancelled. If it's an acceptable response for 8-year-olds, then it should be acceptable for Tyler and Madison, too. Your father had legitimate financial concerns about Christmas expenses. Did he? Because Derek's social media suggests he's been spending quite freely while claiming financial hardship. Vegas trips, expensive dinners, luxury cars. But somehow my responsible, financially stable family got excluded from Christmas for budget issues. I could hear Mom conferring with someone in the background. Then Dad's voice came on the line. "Son, this has gone far enough. Your behavior is dividing this family. My behavior is responding to this family's established priorities." Derek gets luxury treatment for being dramatic and manipulative. Responsible family members get excluded for being stable. I'm just adapting to the system you created. We never intended to hurt Emma and Grace, but you did hurt them, Dad. You sent me a text message canceling their Christmas 3 weeks before the holiday while Derek's kids were already receiving early gifts worth thousands of dollars. Then you asked me to contribute to Derek's kids' college funds. You want to talk about dividing the family? You divided at the moment you decided that one set of grandchildren was more deserving of love and consideration than the other. Derek's children are going through a difficult divorce situation. And my children are going through the difficult situation of learning that their grandparents consider them less important than their cousins. But apparently that's not the kind of difficulty that earns family support. I could hear heated discussion in the background, voices overlapping as Mom and Dad argued about something. Your mother and I want to come to Aspen, Dad said finally. We want to see Emma and Grace and discuss the situation in person. I'm sorry, but that won't be possible, I said. Budget issues. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. What do you mean, budget issues? Dad asked, his voice incredulous. I mean exactly what you meant when you used that phrase to explain to my daughters why their Christmas was cancelled. Our vacation budget doesn't accommodate additional guests. Tough choices have to be made, and we've prioritized the family members who have been supportive and loving toward Emma and Grace. Corey, please, let's be adults about this. I am being an adult, Dad. I'm prioritizing my children's emotional well-being over family drama, just like you taught me to do. Derek's kids come first because their situation is complicated, remember? Well, my kids come first now because their situation is also complicated. They're dealing with a difficult realization that their grandparents play favorites. After I hung up, I found Sarah and the girls at the resort's heated outdoor pool, where Emma and Grace were practicing swimming strokes in the crystal-clear water while snow fell gently around the steaming pool area. That looked like an intense phone call, Sarah said as I settled into the lounge chair next to her. Mom and Dad want to come to Aspen to fix the situation. And you said budget issues. Sarah started laughing, and I realized it was the first completely genuine laugh I had heard from her since Christmas morning. You're really committing to this approach. I'm committed to showing Emma and Grace that they matter more than family politics. And I'm committed to teaching everyone involved that actions have consequences. That evening, as we were getting dressed for dinner at the resort's most exclusive restaurant, my phone lit up with notifications from family members who were finally understanding the full scope of what had happened to Christmas. Uncle Robert called Derek directly, and Derek apparently made the mistake of trying to defend his manipulation by claiming his divorce situation justified the special treatment. But Uncle Robert had done his own social media investigation and found Derek's posts about business success, expensive purchases, and luxury experiences. Aunt Patricia posted on Facebook about family favoritism and the importance of treating all grandchildren equally. She tagged several family members in a post that detailed the Christmas situation and called out the budget issue's hypocrisy. Derek's ex-wife, Amanda, posted her own response, thanking me publicly for finally exposing Derek's manipulation and expressing her appreciation that someone in the family was standing up for children who deserve equal treatment. But the comment that satisfied me most came from my teenage cousin Jessica, who wrote, "So Derek's kids get thousands of dollars in gifts plus a ski trip because of their parents' divorce, but Emma and Grace get excluded from Christmas because their parents are responsible? That's messed up. Good for Uncle Corey for showing them what budget issues really feel like." As Emma and Grace enjoyed their gourmet dinner, chattering excitedly about their ski adventures and asking if we could make Aspen an annual family tradition, I realized that the lesson I was teaching extended far beyond Derek and my parents. I was teaching my daughters that they had value, that they deserved wonderful experiences, and that their parents would fight for their happiness, even when it meant making uncomfortable choices. I was teaching Sarah that our family's well-being came first, before extended family politics or the desire to keep peace at any cost. And I was teaching Derek, Mom, and Dad that responsible, successful people weren't going to accept second-class treatment just because they didn't create drama or manipulate situations for personal benefit. But most importantly, I was teaching everyone that budget issues was a two-way street. And if it was an acceptable explanation for excluding children from family experiences, then it would be applied consistently, regardless of which children were being excluded. The next morning, our last day in Aspen, I woke up to a text message that changed everything. It was from Dad. "Son, your mother and I have been talking all night." Derek admitted that he hasn't been entirely truthful about his financial situation. "We realize we made a terrible mistake with Christmas, and we want to make it right. Can we please talk when you get home?" I showed the message to Sarah, who read it with raised eyebrows. "What do you think?" she asked. I looked out the window at Emma and Grace building a snowman on the resort's pristine grounds, their laughter carrying on the crisp mountain air. They looked happy, confident, and secure in the knowledge that their parents would always prioritize their well-being. "I think," I said, "that it's time for some honest family conversations. But they're going to happen on our terms, with our priorities, and with full acknowledgement that Emma and Grace deserve the same love and consideration as any other grandchildren in this family. And if they're not willing to meet those conditions..." I watched my daughters through the window, their faces bright with joy and adventure, completely secure in their parents' love and commitment to their happiness. "Then we'll keep creating our own magical family experiences," I said. "Because Emma and Grace deserve nothing less than the absolute best we can give them." We returned home from Aspen on a Sunday evening, our car loaded with ski equipment, resort souvenirs, and hundreds of photos documenting the most magical week our family had ever experienced together. Emma and Grace couldn't stop talking about their skiing adventures, the luxury of room service breakfast in bed, and their plans to practice their new ski techniques on the local bunny hill. But as we pulled into our driveway, I noticed Dad's BMW parked on the street in front of our house. Through our living room window, I could see the familiar silhouettes of both my parents sitting on our couch, apparently waiting for our return. "Looks like we have company," Sarah said, following my gaze. Emma and Grace spotted their grandparents' car and immediately perked up. "Grandpa and Grandma are here," Grace exclaimed. "Maybe they want to hear about our skiing." I felt a familiar protective instinct rise in my chest. After a week of watching my daughters rebuild their confidence and joy, I wasn't about to let anyone diminish their happiness or make them feel less than valued. "Mark, girls," I said as we unloaded our luggage. "Grandpa and Grandma are here to talk with Daddy and Mommy about some grown-up things. Why don't you take your new ski clothes upstairs and organize your souvenirs while we have our conversation?" "But I want to show them my pictures," Emma protested. "You'll have a chance to do that," Sarah assured her. "But first, the adults need to talk. Okay?" As we walked through the front door, Mom immediately stood up from the couch, her face a mixture of relief and apprehension. Dad remained seated, his expression more guarded but clearly uncomfortable. "How was your trip?" Mom asked, her voice carefully neutral. "It was incredible," I said, setting down our luggage. "The girls learned to ski. We had amazing family time, and we created memories that will last a lifetime." "That's wonderful," she said, though I could hear the underlying tension in her voice. Dad cleared his throat. "We were hoping we could have a conversation about the situation with Christmas and everything that's happened since then." "I'm listening," I said, though I remained standing rather than settling in for what might be a long discussion. "We owe you an apology, Corey," Mom said, her voice starting to crack slightly. "Multiple apologies, actually. To you, to Sarah, and especially to Emma and Grace." "What specifically are you apologizing for?" I asked, wanting to make sure they understood the full scope of what had happened. Dad shifted uncomfortably on the couch. "We made a serious error in judgment regarding Christmas gifts and family priorities. We allowed Derek to manipulate us with false information about his financial situation, and we made decisions that hurt our relationship with you and the girls." "False information?" Sarah asked, settling into her favorite chair. Mom nodded, her eyes filling with tears. "After you showed me Derek's social media posts, we started asking more direct questions about his claims of financial hardship. When we pressed him for documentation of his job loss, he finally admitted that he quit voluntarily to start his consulting business. And when we asked about the Corvette he claimed to have sold, Dad continued, we discovered it's been parked behind his friend's house to keep us from seeing it when we visited his apartment. I felt a surge of vindication, but I kept my expression neutral. What else? The expensive restaurants, the Vegas trips, the luxury purchases he's been posting about, Mom said, wiping her eyes. All of it funded by money he borrowed from us under false pretenses, plus credit cards he's been hiding from us. He convinced us that his children needed extra support because of the divorce trauma, while he was actually using the situation to fund a lifestyle he couldn't afford on his own, Dad added. Meanwhile, I said, Emma and Grace got their Christmas cancelled because responsible parents supposedly don't need family support or consideration. We were wrong, Mom said firmly. Completely, inexcusably wrong. We let Derek play victim while punishing you for being stable and successful. We took your family for granted because you don't create drama or ask for help. I looked toward the staircase, where I could hear Emma and Grace moving around in their room, probably organizing their vacation photos and souvenirs. The girls were devastated, I said quietly. Christmas morning was heartbreaking. They kept asking why they weren't good enough for their grandparents to come see them. Mom started crying in earnest. I can't believe we did that to them. They must think we don't love them. They did think that, Sarah said softly. They spent Christmas morning trying to understand why Tyler and Madison deserved thousands of dollars in gifts and a ski trip while they got excluded from the family celebration entirely. Dad ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I remembered from my childhood when he was particularly stressed. Derek's manipulation was sophisticated, son. He played on our sympathy for the divorce situation, made us feel like responsible grandparents needed to step in and provide stability for his children, while making you feel like our children didn't need that same love and attention because their parents were capable of providing for them, I said. Exactly. And it was wrong on every level. I walked to the window and looked out at our quiet neighborhood, thinking about the week we had just experienced in Aspen. The joy on my daughters' faces as they conquered new challenges. The way their confidence had rebuilt after being shattered on Christmas morning. The family bonding that had emerged from our decision to prioritize our own happiness. What's changed? I asked, turning back to face my parents. What's different now that makes you think you can fix this? We've established new boundaries with Derek, Dad said. He's no longer living with us, and we've made it clear that any future financial support will require complete transparency and documentation of legitimate need. He's also agreed to enter counseling, Mom added, both for his manipulative behavior and for the impact his choices have had on Tyler and Madison's understanding of family relationships. That's a start, I said. But what about Emma and Grace? How do you plan to rebuild their trust and repair the damage that's been done? Mom and Dad exchanged glances, and I could see they had discussed this extensively. We want to reimburse you for the Christmas expenses you had to cover when we canceled their gifts, Dad said. We also want to pay for your Aspen vacation, since that became necessary because of our poor judgment. And we want to establish new family traditions that ensure all grandchildren are treated equally. Mom added, no more favoritism. No more assumptions about which families need support versus which families can handle things on their own. I considered their offers. The financial reimbursement would certainly help with the credit card debt we had incurred for the vacation, but the money wasn't really the point anymore. I appreciate the financial offer, I said. But what matters more is whether Emma and Grace feel valued and prioritized going forward. They've learned this week that they're capable of amazing things and that they deserve wonderful experiences. I won't let anyone make them feel second class again. We understand, Dad said. And we want to be part of creating those wonderful experiences, not obstacles to them. Sarah leaned forward. What about Derek's children? Tyler and Madison didn't choose their father's manipulation, and they don't deserve to be punished for his behavior. We've had conversations with Derek about that, too, Mom said. The children will still receive love and support, but it will be proportionate and honest. No more luxury gifts funded by deception. No more special treatment that comes at the expense of other family members. I heard footsteps on the stairs, and Emma appeared in the living room doorway, holding a photo from our ski lesson. "Daddy, can I show Grandma and Grandpa my skiing picture?" I looked at my parents, seeing the hope and guilt warring in their expressions. "Come here, sweetheart." Emma approached cautiously, clearly sensing the tension in the room, but eager to share her accomplishments. "Grandma and Grandpa have something they want to say to you first," I said gently. Mom knelt down to Emma's eye level, her voice thick with emotion. "Sweetheart, Grandma and Grandpa made some very bad decisions about Christmas, and we hurt your feelings and Grace's feelings. We're so sorry, and we want you to know that it had nothing to do with how much we love you." Emma studied her grandmother's face seriously. "Tyler said you couldn't afford presents for everybody, so you had to choose." The innocent honesty of her statement hit the room like a physical blow. I saw Dad wince visibly. "That's not what happened, honey," Grandpa said, his voice carefully controlled. "Tyler was wrong about that. We made poor choices about how to handle Christmas, and we hurt people we love very much. We're going to do better going forward." Grace appeared in the doorway, drawn by the serious conversation. "Are you sad, Grandma?" she asked, noticing Mom's tears. "I'm sad that I made you and Emma sad," Mom admitted. "But I'm happy that you had such a wonderful vacation and that you learned to ski." For the next hour, Emma and Grace shared their Aspen photos and stories with their grandparents. I watched Mom and Dad's faces as they saw the evidence of the magical week we had created for our daughters. The professional ski photos, the elegant restaurant dinners, the luxury experiences that had rebuilt my girls' confidence and joy. "They look so happy," Mom whispered to me as Emma demonstrated her skiing stance in our living room. "They are happy," I said. "They learned that they're worth fighting for, that they deserve amazing experiences, and that their parents will always prioritize their well-being above family politics." After my parents left that evening, promising to start planning special one-on-one time with Emma and Grace to begin rebuilding their relationships, I found myself reflecting on everything that had happened over the past month. Derek's manipulation had temporarily divided our family, but in doing so, it had forced all of us to examine our values and priorities. Mom and Dad had been confronted with the consequences of their favoritism and had chosen to make meaningful changes. Derek had been forced to acknowledge his deceptive behavior and commit to therapy. Most importantly, Emma and Grace had learned that they had value, that they deserved equal treatment, and that their parents would move mountains to ensure their happiness and well-being. The Aspen vacation had cost us financially, but it had been worth every penny for the confidence it had restored in my daughters and the boundaries it had established with my extended family. 6 months later, our family relationships had been rebuilt on a healthier foundation. Mom and Dad kept their promise about equal treatment, establishing traditions that included all grandchildren fairly. Derek completed his counseling program and began making genuine efforts to be honest about his finances and transparent about his needs. Tyler and Madison adjusted to receiving age-appropriate gifts and experiences rather than luxury items funded by manipulation. They seemed happier with the more stable, honest family dynamic. Emma and Grace thrived with their restored relationships with their grandparents, but they also carried forward the confidence and self-worth they had gained from our Aspen adventure. They knew they were valued, loved, and worth fighting for. And Sarah and I learned that sometimes protecting your family means being willing to make uncomfortable choices, even when those choices disrupt established family dynamics. The lesson I carried forward was simple but profound: responsible, successful people deserve just as much love, consideration, and support as anyone else in the family. Being stable doesn't mean you should be taken for granted. And being capable doesn't mean you don't need or deserve special treatment sometimes. Most importantly, children deserve equal love and consideration, regardless of their parents' circumstances or the drama level of their family situation. Standing up for those principles had temporarily created conflict, but it had ultimately created a much stronger, healthier family dynamic based on honesty, fairness, and genuine love rather than manipulation and favoritism. As we planned our return trip to Aspen the following Christmas, this time as a multi-generational family vacation with grandparents who had learned to value all their grandchildren equally, I realized that sometimes the best gift you can give your children is teaching them that they're worth fighting for. And sometimes the best gift you can give your family is showing them what real love and commitment looks like. Even when it means making difficult choices and standing firm on important principles. So tell me, have you ever found yourself in a situation where you had to choose between keeping the peace and standing up for what's right? I really want to know what you think. Thanks for listening to my story.